babe, that both been here before. I'll do the lying, you do the crying, babe. Who's first out the door? Liquid courage running through your veins. Liquid courage, just enough to hide the pain. Gunshot voice inside won't stop running through your head. Where you can sleep and who's out there creeping, babe, you might end up dead. Liquid courage running through your veins. Liquid courage, just enough to hide the pain. Babe, let me ride in your automobile. I'm in love with you, babe. Let me ride in your automobile. You got a nice little car, honey. Too many drivers at the wheel. One driver in the daytime, one driver at night. All I need is one driver, babe, to make my little car run right. Well, oh, babe, let me ride in your automobile. You got a nice little car, honey. Too many drivers at the wheel. Babe, you can't do this to me. You say you got one driver, babe, but I count 2 or 3, and oh, babe, let me ride in your automobile. You got a nice little car, honey. Too many drivers at the wheel.
Great pleasure to welcome tonight the band Blind Dog. I guess I'll go and get your names now.
Al.
Bruce.
And Dave.
And Dan.
Now, you guys have been together for a little while. How long actually has it been?
Oh, gee, off and on for
12 years.
12 years.
12 years, yeah.
So you say off and on. Do you guys kind of just band for a while, or
Different members join, and you know, it's hard. We don't play full time, so it's always a hodgepodge. But this particular lineup has been hanging around for a while.
This is the core group.
This is the core group.
Are you guys all friends, or how did you get connected?
Yeah, no, I don't like these guys.
Yeah. No, we're all friends.
Yeah, we're friends. We've known each other for a number of years. Bruce and I have known each other pretty close to 15 years. Dan and I for 10. Dave for 10. Yeah.
8, whatever. Too long.
I guess you guys have become somewhat of a staple at the Harvest Jazz and Blues Festival. I always see you there every year. You always draw a good crowd. Many more shows planned there?
Don't know. We've played there the last 6 years, Gary, and so I keep telling the boys one of these years they're just not going to call back. So we don't know right now. Of course we're always hoping to get in, and I just met with Canal Management Agency last night, who we're going to hire on with, and he's putting together a roster of bands and going to get us some gigs around the Maritimes and stuff. So we're hoping to get some other stuff, but that particular festival I'm not sure about this year. So I'll just wait till the call comes in, or if it doesn't, we'll just go hang and have fun. So
Sure.
Either way, we can't lose.
What have you guys played for there? Pine Top Perkins?
Yeah, we opened for Studebaker John the Hawks one year with Pine Top.
Eddie Kirkland,
Eddie Kirkland, that was fun. Who was it last year? It was Tony Lynn Washington and Mighty Sam McLean. And for 3 years we hosted the Jam, so anybody that was in town played with us at the big party at the end of the weekend kind of thing. Sandra Wright, Luther Johnson's band. Waylon Thibodeau that year, he get up and jammed with. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. So just about anybody that's been in town, we've come in contact with. So
you do a number of the, I guess, some of the outdoor festivals in the summer as well. Do you prefer that as compared to some of the club gigs?
I think the outdoor festivals, yeah. Biker parties are always fun.
Yeah.
Anything outdoor is fun for me. What about you guys? You like the outdoor gigs?
Yeah. Well, the sound's usually pretty good.
Yeah.
No echoing off of hard walls inside. A lot of the clubs around here are
Small.
not renowned for sound.
Yeah.
Outside, you got lots of room to breathe
And to get away from each other, too. The stage is usually a lot bigger. So. You know, well, you give you that headroom, eh?
Changes in the air. Smell it burning everywhere. And I'm so tired of the games people play. The wind blows harder. Change is quick that way. And I'm crying with my eyes open wide. And I'm dying without you by my side. I touch your hand, I see your face. I can't remember when I ever felt this way. Searing clear image. Cold wind blowing, snow's piled high. Sun ain't been shining on my foolish pride. so close to heaven and far away from you. Far away from you. Journey's just beginning. After all we've been through, so I'll climb the highest mountain just to prove it to you. And I'm so close to heaven and far away from you. Far away from you. Caught a glimpse of something special out of the corner of my eye, like a candle in the window, safe and warm inside. Winds of change blow
Something else initially. What do you call it? Disorder at the Border, I believe was the name.
For 3 years.
Yeah.
And then switched to Blind Dog. And that was named after my old dog, Max, who went blind, and we happened to have a picture of her with a pair of sunglasses and a hat on, and we needed a new name, so we said, hey, as good as any, there's always a blind this, blind that. What was it you said, Dave? There was 3 keys to picking a blues name?
That's right. You just start by picking a disease or a disability, and then for the second name you pick a fruit, and the last name you pick an old U.S. president, and you can't go wrong for a blues name.
So maybe we'll change it to Blind Dog Clinton or something. Or Blind Shoe Chicklet.
Blind Shoe Chicklet.
Blind Shoe Chicklet, I like that.
Actually, I've seen some of your promotional posters around town with the dog on it. It's pretty interesting.
Well, that's the old ones. Yeah, we haven't used them for a while.
Okay. Now, you guys also are in the midst of some recording some of your original material. Maybe you can tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I guess Bruce would know more about that. That's the compilation stuff that's happening.
Well, yeah, we were, about 3 weeks ago in Lloyd Hanson's Real North studio. We could only get in for a day kind of thing. Just we wanted to get some new material recorded and started, and there's a couple of CD compilations coming out, one out of Fredericton and one for the province. So they were looking to get us on it, but we wanted to put something a little more up to date, something that represents where we're at in '98 instead of the old one, which was 1994. So
Sort of regressed, though, I think.
no, no, and actually, two of the tunes came out really well. Lloyd's an incredible engineer and producer, and did a great job, and we had a blast, and can't wait to get back there. So, and hopefully we'll see 1 or 2 of those cuts on one of these CD compilations for now, just to hold us over till we can get back in.
Well, for that plug, you should get a discount there on your recording.
Lloyd treats us very well.
Now, well, I guess a lot of musical styles coming in that fashion, but blues always seems to remain somewhat of a staple. It's always there. It's never up or never down, but it's always there. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think you're right. I mean, I listened to it because my father listened to it. I mean, when we were young, that's what we listened to, blues and jazz, and so that's just always been my number one thing. For me, that's the music that can get my foot going, and
there's some emotion in it too.
Yeah, there is.
Like, depending on who the player or singer is, I mean, it can be the simplest song in the world, but if they have a voice or a good solo, I mean, it can really move you. So.
Yeah. The other thing too is that the same song is pretty much played differently every night. It's just however you're feeling.
And it's easy.
Yeah,
it's easy.
It's easy to groove to, no question about that.
And I suppose also.
just a woman, and I'm a man. You do me what I can. You take me high and you take me low. You take me where I want to go. Just another one night stand.
And started to work professionally within a year of that, playing in my father's band and rock bands around here, and then whatever was going kind of after that. And started recording in about '83, and there became a big demand for someone to be doing that in kind of a semi-professional level around town, because there really was no place. I was working at Tony's at the time, and seeing people buy a lot of equipment and rent a lot of equipment, try to make their own recordings, and they often wouldn't turn out very well. So I opened a small studio in the basement of my parents' home officially in 1988. So this is Real North's 10th anniversary this year, you could say. It's an official studio, but I was doing audio work, making jingles with John Fiddler, and recorded my own album entirely on a 4-track that I had between, say, '85 and when I opened the studio in '88. And a lot of people thought that the 4-track recordings that I was making sounded as good as fully produced records, so it was from a lot of people's encouragement and wanting to get involved in this myself that I opened the studio in December of '88.
Now this new studio you're in here now, do you find you have more room? A lot easier to work with?
Yeah. I was constantly jotting things down when I was in the initial very cramped location that I wanted to change, and the way I wanted to lay out the new facility. This facility not only has a large performance space, this large control room, but 4 isolation booths as well that are all separated by solid hardwood doors. And so now it's very possible to bring in an entire band and track the whole band live when still however many components you want are isolated sonically. Like you can get guitar amplifiers away from drums. You can get have a vocalist in the main vocal booth that's completely isolated from the sound of the drums. In fact, the album I'm setting up to mix here today, Room to Move, a group from St. John, was tracked almost entirely live.
Is it becoming now more affordable for bands to record CDs, and are more doing it?
Yeah, the actual cost of the CDs themselves have come down a lot. They're about 1/3 less than they were as little as 5 years ago. And if you've got a band that actually wants to set up and play together and track almost live like that, then they can get the most out of their studio dollar as well. $50 an hour sounds like a lot of money, but if a band can come in and track their entire album in as little as 2 days, then they can make a very affordable album. Now, there's still lots of albums that I kind of refer to as full production that you would be bringing in basically a rhythm section and tracking that for about the same amount of time, then doing all the other instruments and voices one at a time. Now, those projects can be much more expensive because they take up so much more time. But a band that wants to play together and keep all their tracks together can come in and make an album for much less than most people think. And the audio quality is still the same. You're just spending a lot less time.
So I assume now if an artist or a band is shopping for a record label, a record deal, a CD is almost a must-have. The days of the demo cassettes are pretty much gone.
Demo cassettes are useful for some things. They're still useful for getting gigs in bars and things like that. But a finished CD is simply going to pack more clout. It's much more impressive, it would seem, to have a CD come across somebody's desk than it is to just send somebody an unmarked cassette. And you talk about getting a record deal and that kind of thing. That happens to very few people. It's actually much more advantageous for the group to establish themselves as an independent and promote their own music and try to sell their own music before they even go to a label, because the labels will be much more interested in you if you've really established yourself as an independent, where you're almost wasting your time to take your very first recordings and be sending them to a label.
Okay. Now, what sort of musical styles or genres have actually come through the studio and recorded?
This has been a very eclectic studio stylistically. I've recorded a series of folk albums with Brent Mason and Debbie Edgeshade and a few other artists. They're largely from St. John. There's recently been a few blues bands in. Room to Move is technically a blues band. Blind Dog was in. Numerous metal bands, Hemlock, Torn, Power Syndrome. Aldernaut was kind of a punk alternative band that did get signed to a label in Italy, and they're a record that I produced for them about a year and a half ago. Barn Overload came out about 6 months ago. I produced Julian Austin's first album, so that's a contemporary country album. I just finished up with a few a bluegrass band called Black Mountain Bluegrass from St. Martin's area. Recently did a couple of fiddle albums under the guidance of Winston Crawford, an established fiddler teacher from the area. My father, Aubrey Hanson, Ned Landry, another fiddle album. There's been over 50 CD productions all in all. I just finished the first contemporary Christian album with a group from Quispamsis called Present Reality. I'm sure I'm leaving out a lot of people, but as I say, there's been probably 60 albums that I've produced that have come out on CD recently. The Staff is an album I just got back the other day from a group in St. John I did earlier this year.
Well, quite a diverse selection of music, and a lot of people, especially out west, think of the East Coast as a sort of a Celtic.
Fiddles and fish down here.
It's definitely not true. There's alternatives.
Well, that is the stuff that the labels have chosen to make famous. So with the Rankins and Natalie McMaster and people like that getting famous, then people know what they see on TV. So that's what they identify with down here.
Maybe you can briefly now take us through the process of actually recording an album. What's involved in that?
Well, obviously any preparation the group does beforehand, and I always suggest that people do as much preparation as they possibly can. They're basically on their own for that. If I'm hired to produce the album, I enter the picture before the group gets to the studio, and that would technically be referred to as pre-production, where the producer goes and meets with the band and helps the band maybe tighten up their arrangements and talks about parts, talks about how much of it they want to do live and how much they want to overdub, any extra ideas they have for overdubs they're going to do, layering sounds, layering parts, figuring out the best way to make that work and what order you should do things. So that's like a pre-production period. Then there's the period where you basically track the whole band, and then there's a period where you go back and do your overdubs and whatever layering you're going to do. And then what I'm setting up for today, the period where you mix the album, and then mastering comes after that, and that basically finishes the audio.
So do most groups mix or actually record the instruments separate?
That's about half and half, and they almost always had to in the initial facility that I had. But now that I've moved to the larger place, a band has an option to record as much live as they want to, and then go back and just replace or augment certain parts. So probably less than half of the groups choose to record live anyway. You can work more on individual sounds and things like that if you do things separately, but it costs a lot more. And you tend to get a slicker sounding recording, which may or may not benefit the group.
Okay, now what is the job of a producer?
That's a real floating job. It really depends on the relationship of the artist and the need for the particular album. My stock answer to that question has always been the producer's job is to help the artist realize the vision they have. A producer can be someone who can be as minimally involved as just making sure that everyone shows up on time, that the engineer is doing his job properly, or her job properly, and just kind of generally overseeing the whole thing. On the other extreme, a producer can be someone who writes and arranges all the material, plays most of the instruments, and in fact teaches the singer how to sing their own songs. That would kind of be the two extremes. Producer often is the person who's the most familiar with the recording process and is there, myself as a producer anyway, I spend as much time pulling obstacles out of the artist or the band's way as anything. And when things become deadlocked, when the band can't be sure whether to proceed or to do a song again or something like that, then the producer will make those calls. When you're making an album, there's thousands, literally thousands of little decisions you make. Like how many mics do you put on the drums? How do you know when the drums sound right? I mean, how do you know when this song is right, when to go on to the next one? And a lot of bands feel they're going to produce their own recordings, and then by the time they've tracked 1 or 2 songs, and they've already gotten into 3 or 4 arguments that normally amount to a bunch of guys standing around going, I don't know, what do you think? I don't know, what do you think? Then the idea of having a producer seems pretty appealing.
I know some bands self-produce themselves, and I guess some can, some can't.
Yeah, it has a lot to do with just how much experience. There certainly are artists that I've worked with that are totally capable of producing themselves, and there's artists that aren't. Most people are mainly concerned with their own parts, especially guys. Women are more team-oriented, actually, but guys are pretty much concerned with their own parts, I find.
Another important person, I guess, would be the sound engineer. But what is his job now?
Well, his job is to work and maintain all the equipment, to set up cue mixes for the performers, so that he's not only monitoring what's coming into the console and what's going on tape, but he's monitoring what the musicians hear as well. His job is to make sure that all the equipment works properly, continues to work properly, and that you know, all the levels are set properly, and that nothing is getting in the way of the signal going on tape.
Okay, now for some people who ever looked at the back of the CD, it always says mixed here and mastered there, and if you don't know what that is, what exactly does that mean? Because it's usually done in a separate facility, is it not?
It's not, I wouldn't say it's usually done in a separate facility. Sometimes is. Some people do choose to mix and master in their facilities, but of course, when you're looking at CDs like that, you're probably looking at major label recordings that had access to at least tens of thousands of dollars, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. So often, that's the artist setting up a great vacation for themselves. You know, let's track in New York City and go to London to mix. Sure, that'd be fun. You know, so that's often part of it. Mastering at the very high end of the game, there are, you know, probably a few dozen people around the globe that have become infamous for mastering specifically. And when you're spending all this money and on a major label recording, you have to justify the fact that you're spending all this money. So there's people that make certain pieces of equipment and people that charge outrageous sums of money for what they do. So you justify spending all that money by hiring these people and going to these places. And certainly the people out there in music business land that write Billboard charts and things like that are probably also impressed to see those people's names on the back of albums. So that's a big part of it. And I don't mean to say or even insinuate that those people aren't necessarily good at what they do, but there's certainly probably a lot of hype associated with spending, you know, $1 million on an album. I mean, I remember when that Divisionville Pink Floyd album came out, you know, the hype was an album that cost over $1 million to make. I mean, do you think it's the best Pink Floyd album? No. It's probably one of the worst. But hey, man, they spent $1 million on it. So records have kind of become like movies. I mean, everyone rushed out to see Terminator 2 because it was the first movie that topped $100 million. So why were you going to see it, you know? Why did people think that Pink Floyd album was so great? You know, because it had great music on it? That wouldn't be the case. No, it's because, oh yeah, man, they spent $1 million to make this record. So you've got to hire a lot of real expensive people and fly a lot of people around to spend that much money.
Kind of like a movie. I've seen a lot of independent movies. They're much better than some of these high-budget movies.
As far as content and emotion, yeah.
So now, is the master tape, is that put on reel-to-reel or onto a digital audio tape?
DAT has become a real affordable medium for studios this size to be able to mix digitally. So DAT tape is what I tend to mix to, but no, the preferred medium now is shipping audio around to be duplicated is CD. And I am someone who does master my own work. Most studios don't. Most studios at any level don't master their own work. But I've opened up officially a shingle last year as a mastering facility, and last year alone I mastered albums that I either did or didn't record or produce from as far away as St. John's, Newfoundland, Vancouver, BC, and New Orleans, Louisiana. Last year alone I mastered albums for artists from all those locations. The first few CDs I made, I sent away and had them mastered in Toronto because I didn't know anything really about that at the time, and this is just what you did. I was very dissatisfied with what was done at the mastering stage of those projects. So basically, like all parts of the process all the way along, I bought the equipment that I could afford that would do that job and learned how to do it myself. And I've always been, and my clients have been happy with the results since. Last year, I went out and bought some real high-end digital mastering equipment, which has made that job much easier, and the results are much better again. And that's when I opened up the mastering division here of the studio, open to the public as opposed to just people that I work with. And I bought a high-quality audio CD recorder as well, so now I can master albums right to CD right here in this room.
Now, the actual manufacturing process of the disc, is that done here in Atlantic Canada?
No, there are no CD manufacturers in Atlantic Canada. There's still, I think there's 3 companies, one in Montreal and 2 in Ontario that I know of. I can't believe that there isn't one on the West Coast yet, but I don't think there is.
Okay. Also, you mentioned earlier you work in almost complete darkness.
Yeah, this is very bright for me, and as anyone watching this interview will know who's ever worked with me, I'm practically phobic when it comes to light, artificial light anyway. And a lot of people have nicknamed this place Real Dark Studios because, yeah, I do mix in almost complete darkness and prefer to record in almost a complete lack of light as well. And much to my surprise, pleasantly, a lot of the people that I work with, you know, even elderly people, like people in their 60s come in, and I explain to them, you know, very nicely that I really prefer to work in a very little amount of light. Most people become very tolerant of that, like within 20 minutes, you know. They'll put up with kind of half stumbling around the dark. I make sure there's no obstacles in their way. And you really can hear better, you know. I can light one candle in my apartment at night and be very content, and it's a large apartment, so no, I'm not a big light fan.
So I guess if one sense is a kind of dulled, the other is accentuated.
Yeah, I would buy that. That would make sense to me.
Okay, well, thanks very much, Lloyd. I hope
You're
you
welcome.
have the best of luck. Maybe produce another 60 CDs.
Okay, thank you.
Lloyd Hanson, Real North Recording Studios, right here in Fredericton.
Thanks, Gary.
You gotta help me, babe. I can't do it by myself. You gotta help me, babe. I can't do it by myself. And if you won't help me, woman, I'm gonna have to find somebody else. Might have to cook, might have to clean, might have to sweep and mop the floor. You gotta help me, babe. I can't do it by myself. And if you won't help me, woman, I'm gonna have to find somebody else.
Festival scene and opening act stuff is right now where we're more looking at, or, you know, if we can get to Halifax, Charlottetown, stuff like that, where there's a good club where you can go and have a good time. But like you say, Gary, overall it's kind of disappointing, you know, because the East Coast is hot right now and everything's country Celtic, and there just doesn't seem to be that avenue of good quality clubs for up-and-coming rock or blues bands to really get featured in this province anyway.
Yeah. And as far as Fredericton goes, of course, the thing that's always surprised me is there are a lot of really good players here who aren't playing out. You know, they're just not playing out.
Well, hopefully things will improve. And well, I guess we got a guy here now. I guess there's a firing squad coming in soon, so shouldn't be standing in front of this wall.
Okay.
Anyway, of course, the band is Blind Dog, and if you ever hear them playing anywhere around your area, please go and check them out.
Doghouse, mama. Cold alone, feeling blue. I'm in the doghouse, honey. It's not as cold as laying next to you.